Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever struggled with fighting in relationships, or keeping the peace in relationships, then do we have the show for you. Today we'll be talking with Bob and Judith Wright, best-selling authors, human development experts, relationship fight masters, bet they've never heard themselves called that before,
No.
and authors of their latest masterpiece, The Heart of the Fight. And that's what we'll be talking about today, about how fighting can be good for a relationship, incredibly healthy and healing, if done well, and no, that doesn't mean always winning. That plus we'll talk about dueling over dollars, the hidden middle finger, making love and war, and how a day on Oprah can turn into the Family Feud. So welcome to the show, Bob and Judith. Are you ready to shine?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, Michael.
Well, woohoo! I'm so glad to have you on the show. So before we dive right into things, I've got to ask, what in the world happened on Oprah before you went on the show?
Oh my gosh, that's a great. Well, it was a whole program about in-laws, and Oprah's working with these families and whatever. And I was supposed to come out at halfway through, and after the first break, she walked off the set. She said, you go handle them. You go in there and handle them. She'd had it. So I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't supposed to be on yet. And like, oh my gosh, she said, I can't. Oh, you to handle it. So she sent me off to handle these battling families on air. It was kind of like oh my God, my heart's pounding. And we did some work. It was kind of actually a beautiful thing.
So what was the outcome of half an hour's work on national TV?
Yeah, right. No pressure there, But well, it was interesting because this one family, there was a couple of them. One family, it was the husband was really, he never talked. It was like his wife talked, the in-laws talked, everyone talked about him, around him. And I just turned and said to the audience, do you notice who's not talking here? And everyone knew that this is part of the dynamic and that he wasn't asserting himself. He was letting everybody else handle whatever was happening there. Then he started to deal in, and we started to get some truth going, and I started to get some real conversation happening and some understanding. It was really beautiful to see.
Surprised you didn't get your own show out of it. So then I've got to ask, switching gears from there, you guys never fight. Is that right?
Oh my God. No, that is so not true.
Wrong book.
Our staff actually says that they wish that they had ongoing video cams on their foreheads because our fights start and end so fast.
But
oh, wow.
Yeah, we fight all the time. It's part of, and I had to learn how to fight, but fighting's been a real key to our closeness and solving things and coming up with creative solutions. It's been a really important part of our relationship and continues to. We've already had fights this morning.
Bob, do you still try to control the flame on the stove?
Very good, very good. Actually, I had a spiritual teacher tell me to leave her alone and that the only place for us to compete was in the bedroom to give each other pleasure.
Woohoo!
He kicked me around the room and he says, what, you want her to think she divorced a monkey to marry a baboon?
Oh my.
What difference does it make who drives the car as long as you get there?
All right. So let's segue from there into, you talk about early in the book, you say that good relationships require great fights. What in the world do you mean by that?
Well, if you avoid intimacy, you're avoiding intimacy if you're avoiding conflict. Conflict is actually one of the best ways to get surface. Like, what are you feeling? What do you care about? What matters? What's upsetting to you? What do you yearn for deeply underneath that big fight? And if you're not fighting, you're not engaging. You're not in the relationship fully.
Well, I was talking to a group the other day, and one of the husbands was very proud of the fact that they never fought. And as I dug into it with them, it turns out they were buying new furniture for the house. And he didn't like the furniture that they ended up getting. And what came out of it was that he told her what he liked and didn't like first time around and then shut up after that. And so he was brewing a very big fight that didn't need to happen because he wouldn't have the little fights that would help them come to a common sense of taste and what they liked.
So there are 15 fights that you list early in the book that make or break relationships. Furniture isn't one of them. But maybe it should be.
It really should be. I mean, so many couples, there's so much tension over home decorating and remodeling, and if people make it through that. But maybe it fits under the up and down toilet seat and other domestic
the domestic disputes. Yes.
Yeah, the things that happen around the house.
So each of the disputes isn't really about the dispute, but it has something positive to each one too. So maybe what is the real fight over up and down toilet seats, other domestic disputes, and furniture?
Well, let's take the furniture guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he really yearned to have a happy marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He yearned to be seen and known, but he wouldn't talk. If she didn't catch him up front, his yearning to be seen by her was not satisfied, and he had given up on the foundation of yearning and wanting to know, to love and be loved, to see and be seen, to talk and be heard.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, because all these domestic things, that is a common one, because the day-to-day household things are what we run into so much. It's so part of the fabric of our life. And the up and down toilet seat, let me start there. So those are like power and control struggles, and the research shows that for like the first 10 years of relationship are really all about power and control, like really trying to figure out. And there's so much symbolism in that. And the domestic disputes, like, you don't do enough. You left your socks on the floor again. Why am I supposed to pick up your dirty underwear? All those things, because they represent to us that you don't care about me, or you're not thinking about me, or you take me for granted, or I'm not as valuable. That they're so symbolic of those things, but we fight about the surface of it and don't get underneath it, which is where the real communication and the real depth and closeness can come from.
In a few minutes, I want to get under the surface and understand a few of the key components here. Let me go over before that a couple other interesting fights that are like, well, obviously the top 15, but I'd even put them higher than that. Dueling over dollars.
Yeah, it's a biggie. Money is such a big deal. Having it, not having it, managing it, not managing it. But it's because money really symbolizes so much. Oftentimes for people, money is love. If I have enough money, then I have enough love. If you buy me a big enough expensive present, then that must mean you love me. But it also is security. If we don't have a sense of money, then we don't feel secure. So it's really things about security and love and status is all underneath.
You've got to figure we're all cavemen, and we want to make sure we've got enough to eat.
It's true. It's true. It's very primal, and it really activates some really primal things. And we think it's about the money, but it's really about something much deeper.
That makes sense. So going along that caveman theme, the hidden middle finger.
And you say that because it's mostly men to women, giving them the silent treatment and making them pay for the fact that women want more out of a relationship than men in most cases.
And I think we have some training to do, I think, in that way as well. But I've been certainly passive aggressive also. So I'm guilty of hidden middle finger fights as well. But like, you're punishing each other without telling each other what you really are mad at or what you really want. It's just like, I'll show you, but you don't really show in a way that really is.
And what happens is then, because neither of you is being seen or heard or known, it goes, the conflict goes under the carpet, and sooner or later you're going to trip.
We have one in our household that I'm going to get in trouble for embarrassing here, but talk about you embarrassed me.
Okay. So let's actually hit this one with a little more depth.
Please.
So our second couples retreat ever back in the early 90s, Judith has the women upstairs, and they're talking about how they sell out to men. I have the men downstairs, and by the way, women don't know that we are afraid of them in most cases, because women are martial in the verbal martial arts, black belts, supreme level black belts, and the reason we yell louder is because we aren't as good. Men who have been afraid of their mother and all the women in their lives, and we're an hour and a half behind. The caterer has delivered lunch. And we decided we were going to eat on the fly. And we come on upstairs, and I grab a paper plate and I grab some food out of a box. And Judith says, no, we have to set up the tables. And I say, horse manure. We said we were going to eat on the fly. And I grab some more food out of a box. And Judith takes it off of my plate and puts it away. And I say, horse manure. And so I start grabbing more food faster. Next thing you know, all the women are on me taking everything. The men have disappeared. We have a yoga teacher downstairs meditating. We have people outside smoking, looking in the window. And finally, I say, I'm so mad. I feel so humiliated. Judith says, good. That's how I feel around you all the time. And that stopped the fight. It stopped it cold, because one of the things we do is we agree with the truth. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is I do things I have done and do much less, very much less, that to Judith in public that I would never tolerate. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big turning point in our relationship.
Want to give me a chance to see. I had embarrassed him, and it was embarrassing in front of people. And I acknowledged that my point, I wanted to make the point, but I didn't need to make it going in that way, and help get more truth about it. But it is those ways where we embarrass one another, we feel humiliated by the other, and it can be, that's the deepest kinds of things that Bob's talking about. And there's the surface things that people have, like they're embarrassed by how you talk or how you dress or whatever, and there's just a lot more information underneath it.
Well, and the interesting thing on that particular fight is that Judith had conceded eating on the fly was using paper plates instead of china. And to me, eating on the fly was you shove it in your mouth and you go on.
There may be a man-woman thing going on there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay out of it, though. You get enough people in that one. I'm going to jump ahead here. I wanted to talk briefly about the battling to bliss process, but it feels like before I even do that, there are a lot of couples out there, and we've certainly had our challenges as well as anybody else, where there's a lot of emotional scarring from past fights or past fights gone badly. So how do we drop our guard so that we can move past the scarring of a fight and open ourselves up enough to be comfortable fighting for a healthier relationship?
Well, foundational to the entire game is trust. Mm-hmm. And so when we've had a scarring incident, we've lost some trust and we become more afraid of each other. And so fear creates distance. And what we first of all need to learn to do is to be able to trust each other. And that's part of why we articulated the 7 rules of engagement. And they start with affirming the positive, because if we've got a wound, we need a lot of healing. And the other one is minimizing the negative. And the negative gets really minimized when nobody gets more than 50% of the blame.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one to me, that no one gets more than 50% of the blame. So if you drop a plate, you break it, the other person's upset with you, you still got to take 50%. How does that work?
Well, first of all, the other person's upset isn't about the plate. The upset probably comes from something symbolic. If it was the best china, maybe it was Aunt Mary's china, and it's symbolic of Aunt Mary going under it. There's always a story underneath the upset. So yes, I dropped the plate. I apologize. And maybe our plate storage system doesn't work very well either. And maybe I need to be more comfortable. But you're really mad at me. And we've got some very good information. We call that being hooked. When we're hooked, that means we've got something to hook on, and that means unfinished business. That's part of why we talk about couplehood as karma cleansing. We each get to look at our unfinished business and finish it.
So we're kind of jumping around all over here, and we'll just roll with this. In that moment when you catch a hook, is that the time to be pulling on the hook and reeling in the fish, or do we first need that time out? Do we need to get the breather, or at least check in?
Yeah, I did not have the capacity when I was hooked to be able to tell the truth in the beginning and to be able to get to what was really going on. I would try to act as if I had a full deck, in this fight with Bob, and I didn't have a card actually. So we did institute timeouts. Literally, timeouts are not just for kids, and we gave a time limit. We had to come back and talk about it within 24 hours. Actually, we did it much more quickly than that. Then I could kind of kind of like being in a boxing ring. I need to go to my corner and get kind of refreshed for a bit and go, wait a minute, what's going on with me? Why am I so charged? What am I upset about? What about, yeah, it bothers me, but what about it bothers me? What's triggered for me? What does this remind me of? And when I can start to answer some of those questions to myself and then go back and share that with Bob, that's when things started to unlock. And I actually think this goes back to the other question you asked about being willing to be more vulnerable or open up to tell the truth about what we're feeling. I needed a little time myself rather than just resisting Bob to kind of just not just time consciousness actually is probably the more key. Like, wait, what's really going on? And then being willing to tell my truth no matter what, because I need to validate my own reality regardless of how he responds. Those are big, huge lessons for me, because before I wanted to just make sure he'd respond well before I say something. And I had to get to my own sense of, oh, what am I feeling? What is this to me? And be willing to be real with it.
It sounds like definitely mindfulness. Ooh, we've got a feedback. Maybe I can have you turn down the volume just a tiny bit more.
I can.
Testing 1, 2, 3. That sounds.
Are we okay?
That sounds good. Although your image has. Oh, there, your image is back now. Okay. That sounds a lot like mindfulness in a sense, because you have to become present. You have to become aware of what string has even been pulled and follow that string along as the sweater is getting smaller and smaller to see what's there.
Well, right. And, I think part of it is just have to notice that all of a sudden you went from 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. So that's a trigger point. Wow, I am hooked. I mean, that you have to be mindful that you're hooked, that I think there's something to that. And then to really have the capacity to go and find out what's really going on. Ideally, we can do that on the fly. Ideally, we could do that in the moment. It took me some training to be able to get to it and then come back into the conversation to do it.
So if Bob presses your button, can you say, this is good that my button's been pressed because I've got something to work on here?
Yeah, eventually. Do I in the moment? No, he's just he's a jerk or something. My immediate thing is never quite that kind. But yes, actually, I do appreciate it because I've learned so much about really myself. I've learned more about, I feel teary just thinking about it because it's been just as like this vast interior landscape that I wasn't aware of. And as long as I'm just fighting on the surface, now I actually do. I'm like, wow, this is hook. There's many things. So just a typical one for us is, I'm a middle child and I have all those kinds of things. But my father, of course, I have these transferences on Bob. So if Bob's distracted behind his computer, I'm trying to get his attention and he doesn't pay attention to me, I'm really triggered. That bothers me a lot. But now I know that that's a childhood thing. And that's my dad behind the newspaper.
Oh, you've got to get this. So the first time I go to her house,
yep.
It's over Christmas. And she says, I just want to warn you, my dad will be sitting in his chair and he will be reading the newspaper. He will either ignore us totally or he will look over the paper and greet us and go back to the paper. I couldn't believe it. But we walk in the house, he looks over the paper, greets us, and he had not seen her in over a year.
Yeah,
it was right back in his paper.
It wasn't something he was comfortable with. He had other gifts, but that was not it. So that triggers for me, when Bob's behind, metaphorically, the newspaper. But it's good that I know that now because I'm not just blaming Bob. And it's actually good because I can go tend to myself then. And I can actually realize what that old wound is and actually and go back to him to get it tended to. It's really part of the magic of relationships when we can get to what this tender stuff is and bring that to one another. Oh my gosh, the healing that can take place. And now I have this. It's a different sensation for me now. It's a much softer place. I actually can take in his love and understanding and compassion, and that's becoming part of me now, which I didn't have before.
And not to mention the fact that she studied male and female neurobiology and figured out that men are more focused, and when we're focused, we tune things out.
That's true.
So she gives me a break.
Well, it's true.
Wow, we've got a get out of jail free card there.
I know. I read the study that when men are reading, they're virtually deaf. So there is something to that, and I need to be more proactive to get his attention. That's my 50%. My 100% responsibility if I want to be satisfied is I have to get the weight. It's not just all him. I didn't do what I needed to do to get his attention.
Beautiful. I'm going to go for a minute into fairy tale land. We have a near and dear friend of ours who keeps breaking off a relationship that we feel is a very good teaching relationship. And he keeps breaking it off because he believes when you find the right person, there will be no fights, that's how you know. What can you tell us about this?
Oh, that is so not true. It's so just not it at all. And people think that, like, oh, if I find the right one, they'll live happily ever after and there's no fighting. That's so not true. And that also makes people really lazy in love. You don't end up working on it then. You don't surface things because you don't want to wreck it or whatever. And then what it does is exactly what you're saying. You break up rather than work through things. Now, fighting's critical. It's really part of getting closer. That makes me so upset when I hear that because so many people believe that. I mean, they did these studies. There's like, 70 to 80% of people have Cinderella type fairy tale elements in their vision of love. And it really leads to a lot of disappointment and upset because it's just not true, nor should it be. It's really, the fairy tales, they never talk. They have musical backgrounds. They get together and they live happily ever after. And they don't even know one another. They have no idea what happens after that. And it's a beautiful journey that most people don't know about.
What do you think then is the, this is a strange term, but what's the goal of a relationship?
Yeah, I love this.
Well, I think the purpose of humanity is consciousness and love, and that a relationship has many goals to exist, to keep a roof over your head. But the purpose for us is for us to learn and grow and become the most loving human beings we can become.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Very, very beautiful. And that means then that your partner is your teacher.
Absolutely.
Your partner is not just your cheerleader saying, I love you just the way you are. I love you perfectly just the way you are.
And that's another thing people expect. You'll love me just as I am. Now, you should really, the studies even show that, help me be loved into who I can become, really foster who my best self. It's like, if you just accepted me as I was, I'd never change. That's not the
Well,
point.
and I think we have to make a distinction between acceptance and love, because a lot of people equate them. And we like to think that we are loving beings learning to be more clearly loving. And sometimes my full engagement, which is not always pleasant, is my clearest expression of love in that moment. And that I'm learning.
I'll pause you there. That's a fantastic statement. Because sometimes we're not really in that place of love. We're struggling with it. But you say it's the best you can do in that moment.
Yeah, see, I don't see love as a place. I see love as life. I see love as God, and it is flowing through me. And from a Jungian perspective, to a certain extent, I can channel that life, and to a certain extent, I can't. But it's always life flowing through me. So if life is love, that's the game, and I'm learning to be more alive, meaning I'm learning to be more loving.
Woohoo! So going from there, you say, we'll talk about some of these 6 elements here. And you say for yearning, you say we fight because we yearn. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's really true because, there's a deeper level. Because if you think about it, the universal yearnings of the human heart are to love and be loved, to be seen, to be heard, to be known, to be understood, to matter, to make a difference, to connect, to belong. Those are the things that we yearn for deep, deep, deep in our heart. And our fights are really because those yearnings aren't being met. It hurts when those aren't met. But if we don't learn to communicate what it is we really yearn for, it becomes so confusing for us. Your slippers example is what I'm thinking.
Oh, sure. This is a 4-year fight. Most couples don't know how to fight for. They fight against. For 4 years, our campus in Wisconsin, where we live, part of the time, our cleaning lady would put my slippers in the bedroom. When I like my slippers by the door when I get home. We're in the wilderness up there, and we take our shoes off at the door. Mm-hmm. And it was hugely symbolic for me. It was a 4-year fight until Judith finally got it.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't understand he had this yearning, that it really was to matter, to feel like he was important, that I was thinking about him. And I did all the communications with her, so it really was my responsibility in that way. And I just didn't get it. I thought it was just, he's just trying to control me. excuse me, I'm so sorry, Bob, before you fight. But it's like, he really yearned for some. It wasn't about the slippers. It was about being cared about. It was about being honored, being affirmed, being thought about, having his wishes matter. And that's what that was about. And when you get to that, it's much easier then to resolve or to understand and to move on.
That's beautiful. I think we all do have yearnings. We're all looking for more of that.
Absolutely.
On that note, something in that yearning category is, and something we've almost all been taught, why is active listening some of the worst relationship advice?
Isn't
we'll
that
ever
something?
get?
Everybody's taught that you're supposed to do that. It's terrible that the studies show that it's like the bottom of the list. It doesn't work. And if it does work, it works for a tiny amount of time. You know why it doesn't work? It's fake. It's not real. It's not really engaged. Oh, Bob, you feel angry because whatever.
You're damn right.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's stilted, and you're damn right. It's part of what needs to get out.
And the real aim is responsibility. Can we sort it out? Can we each take 50% of the responsibility and 100% responsibility for our own satisfaction? And then we become trustworthy, and then that helps us heal those earlier wounds that you mentioned earlier, too.
So what's a better way to hear the other person?
I don't know how to answer that one. I think the more important thing is both of us are willing to really express ourselves. And one of our rules of engagement helps is to really express and acknowledge the truth always. And I don't want to always acknowledge the truth, especially if it's a hurtful one to me. Bob's calling me calling me on something I don't want to acknowledge. But being able to really listen for the truth and be willing to say, good point. Even though I don't want to give you
Judith is a truth commando. She's a truth commander.
I think all women are.
Well, she doesn't always express it as freely, but boy, she sure doesn't tolerate anything less. We were having a huge fight in the early years of our marriage, and we were down at her parents' house. And when you've gone to bed and she's sleeping soundly, and I'm sitting there steaming, just furious. And finally, I got to a point of responsibility, and I didn't wake her up to punish her. This time, I woke her up to communicate, and I said that the absolute truth about the fight and how I felt about it, and I didn't blame her at all. And she said, "Oh," and she gave me a hug.
Woohoo! That could have gone another way. So
many other outcomes, but I think that willingness to acknowledge the truth is a thing that helps us be able to hear one another. And we have both the responsibility. If I want him to hear me, I have to do I have to keep asserting myself. I need to make my points. I need to hang in there until I get myself.
Well, that's why our fights are productive. When we started, Judith would get lost by my reasoning.
Oh my gosh!
And it took her quite a while to stay with her own truth and acknowledge the truth in what I said.
That's true.
By the way, that happens to a lot of people.
How do we keep the nervous system down during these times so that we don't go into the amygdala lizard-like response, which is you are the enemy and I will lash out with my tongue?
No, it's really true, because when you have that high physiological arousal state that's caused from that, your perception is really screwed up. You can't see, you miss at least 50% of the positives. You coat neutral with negative. I mean, the studies show us that, and we know it in our own experience. But we really do need to learn down regulating to be able to, that's my timeouts were my way to do that earlier on. Whoa, wait a minute, I'm triggered. I've got to go. Whatever people use, whether it's deep breathing or just mindfulness or whatever that is, soothing. Sometimes I would literally rock myself. I would just give myself the soothing that I needed to really be able to okay, honey, what's going on, what's really there. And you can do it. I mean, those are learned skills, and it's really very helpful.
I think that there are two elements to it. With the capacity, if I can really agree with the truth, I don't need to worry so much. My frontal lobe stays engaged. I have a degree of consciousness left in my caveman fight. And if I can really agree with the truth and train myself to take responsibility, I may not do it right away, but we'll get there sooner or later. And if we're telling the truth, then it doesn't get that hurtful.
Yeah.
Do you set up or help couples to set up? You have your rules of engagement. Do you help them to understand in advance? For instance, I've been in relationships before where you couldn't take a timeout, where a timeout was seen as that was your silent middle finger.
Right. Right.
So how do we really set up these ground rules so that when things start to spin under control, you can take that pause?
Well, some of it you do that ahead of time. Like with our timeout, we set up ahead of time. It wasn't some kind of way to kind of stonewall or withhold or withdraw in the middle of the fight. So we knew that, and we had a code word so that I would just say something like, "This is one of those times, Bob, that I need some space." That was our code sentence. And when I said that, he would acknowledge that. He knew I'd go
most of the time.
Well, most of the time. And he knew I would come back. So we set up that ground rule ahead of time. But the other thing is, I don't think we need to be so careful. I just don't think relationships are that fragile. I mean, love is messy. I think we got to get into it. You make a mess, go clean it up. I don't think we have to be so careful from the get-go. I mean, I don't think we should be toxic dumps on one another, but I think we need to be willing to wow, I was totally out of line, come back in and clean it up rather than be so careful going into it.
I just feel like saying that we should have maybe a code word like banana. Banana. Banana alert, banana. Banana's fine. I mean, it would really do it. So what's talking about being messier in a relationship and talking about getting it out there, you also talk, though, about having a good ratio, the right ratio of constructive versus destructive interactions.
Yeah, it's really
What does that look like?
Well, that's the second skill, which is engage. So we're right there. So engaging. So you can have the gunk and the crap and the eye rolls and the condescension and all the stuff that happens and the mockery and things that we do. We're all going to be human. But for every snarky thing we do, we need 5 positives. And 5 positive doesn't just have to be touchy-feely, sweet. It can be actually being curious about one another.
And that takes a lot more learning and growing than most people know.
Yeah.
It was relatively easy for me because I grew up first child, first grandchild on one side, and my dad adored my mom. And so I was kind of trained to be affirming
and
in
really
a lot of ways.
Affectionate and affirming.
But it's shocking how many couples don't really look each other in the eye. They don't know how to really listen to each other, to nod. So there are so many ways to engage that couples miss. It's really been quite a wake-up call to us how much we have to train them just how to enjoy and have more affirming interactions in these engagements.
What would be another positive tool you'd recommend in engagements?
Well, being interested in each other is a big one. Is we think we know everything about each other, but we don't.
Yeah, really being curious, being interested. I mean, there's simple things. We even work on greeting rituals at the end of the day because one gets home before the other one, and usually you're totally into something, or you're being with the kids, or you're whatever. And we drop everything, and we greet each other. Actually, we use it like how a puppy greets you when you come home. Oh, I mean, we.
If you only saw what happens when my wife pulls up in the car. her parents have seen it and say, "When will he grow up? I look like this dog. I get the tail going for her."
Yep.
Yep. There it is right there. But things like that really matter to where it signifies, wow, I'm so glad you're home. I'm so happy you're here. Those kinds of even just rituals or ways of greeting one another are really important. And going on weekly dates, that's a sacrosanct. And if you need to cancel that date, you reschedule it to really have time that's devoted to your couple where you're actually really talking and sharing and enjoying each other.
Beautiful. What is bidding? And why is that important?
Oh, God. So what happens? So now it's just bidding. I love that. So it's bidding for attention, and we do it all the time. Like, Bob, I use one of them. I think Bob will say, "Oh, look at that hawk," when we're drawing. Well, I don't care about hawks, and whatever.
I do. I'm with you, Bob.
Yeah, he's trying to get my attention towards something that matters to him, and wait, that matters. Or I'll mention something, and I was reading something about something. I'll say something, and Bob, and I'm kind of expecting Bob to say, "Oh, what's that?" But these are all little bids for attention, and couples that really are successful actually respond to those bids. They actually say, "Oh, show me that," or "Tell me about that, honey," or "Oh, interesting."
And couples that are having trouble, just the opposite. They'll hear the other person's bid as an invalidation.
I almost sense like a scorecard for this one, or it's like putting money in the bank. If you acknowledge enough bids to the other person.
Yes,
really
exactly.
That's
You're
good.
building up goodwill that gives you a buffer in troubled times.
Yeah.
I think that's important. So I hate to ask this next question. What does it mean to pick a perfect prick?
That would be me.
Well,
I'm
because
staying out of it again.
yeah, well, because it's just kind of like this. I don't know if it's just the grand design, but we're like we will pick someone who's just really the most perfect person to prick any unfinished business that we have. I mean, the person that we love the most is also the one that's going to hook most of our unfinished business. So it pricks your unfinished business, and sometimes I think then that he's a prick. That's kind of what happens when that happens.
Well, this is important to understand, and we haven't talked much about choosing a partner yet, but this radically alters the perception. It comes back to the fairy tale syndrome again, about that right person for you may be the perfect prick.
Well, it's really,
so yeah, our singles staff love the book and wish they'd gotten it sooner. So our friend hooked us up, and we had met at a party earlier and had opinions of each other already that were not flattering.
Oh no!
Yeah. And our friend suggested we get together. I says, "You mean Barbara Walters? Because Judith always got everybody else talking and never shared anything herself." And Judith says, "You mean that obnoxious SOB?" And her friend said, "I think you should tell each of us told each of us to say you should tell the other one that." So on our first date, we started out with our ground rules, and we've been going at it ever since.
Okay, what in the world does that say for chemistry?
Oh, chemistry is like so overrated, and it really, yeah, there is a chemical reaction. There's kind of this buzz, but you're high.
You had a fight or flight chemical reaction.
It's really right. It's true. Well, chemistry. I mean, we had chemistry. That was part of that spark in that way. But it's like, but chemistry inevitably dies. I mean, and people think that when that dies, that means there's something wrong with the relationship, or I've fallen out of love, or it's the wrong person, and it always dissipates. I mean, when you're on that chemical rush, you're thinking with your body. You're not thinking. You're not like having deep conversations about what matters or what your lives are about or your visions or whatever. That has to kind of dissipate, and it starts to open then up the possibilities from passionate love to more companionate love, which is more affection and depths of attachment, and that can lead the way to more consummate love, which is this kind of ultimate kind of relationship. And people don't know that's just the beginning, and it needs to die in order for something else to happen. And to think like, oh, I'm not attracted to you, or we don't have chemistry. Chemistry can build through a depth of relationship, and that's actually sometimes way more important. I mean, sometimes the people that turn you on are so bad for you. I mean, and that's really been important.
Well, invariably, they represent something you don't know how to do or be for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing is we've got a number of guys who get trophy wives. They tend to all come from large Catholic families where they're like in the middle of the pack, and they really don't have great self-esteem. So you find this trophy wife. You marry this trophy wife, then you starve her the rest of her life. And it's a very sad syndrome.
Any other words of wisdom you have specifically for singles getting out there and dating or getting into relationships?
Well, singles start hoping this is the right one instead of testing it. Think of singlehood as the fact that you're going to be going on a road rally around the world, going over mountains and through swamps and over deserts. And you get to buy any car in the world you want.
I'm already intimidated, though.
Would you go to the showroom and buy the prettiest car, or would you buy a car and drive it hard? Most singles fail to engage fully and find out who it is they are really with. Mm-hmm. And marriage is a lot more than that road rally around the globe.
Wow. So Jessica and I started well because we got together. We started working on a first book only a month or two after we got together. She had me quit my job to start a book. 9 months later, we were on a 120-city book tour in a econo-sized crossover vehicle with the back seats out for the two dogs.
Oh my gosh, what a test. You really did drive it out. You drive the car hard, really, literally. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, with a trailer attached. So we go in to give a talk, and she'd say, we're engaged to be married, but we'll see after this book tour.
I
well,
love
it's
it.
true because
I love it.
You're in it. You're testing it. All those tensions. How do you deal with it? Yeah, that's perfect. This is great. You're doing exactly what we tell people.
And we did. By the end of it, she said, we'll get married afterwards, and it's looking pretty good. And we did get married, but now we've got that scarring to work on.
There's a lot of lessons learned out of all that, which is really the point. I mean, that you forge more of a relationship that way, which is most couples want it just kind of be this honeymoon little fairyland, and this is what's much more real, what you're talking about.
And if we think about that scarring, we also want to remember that we can only get the scarring today from scarring that started way earlier. And so the more that we come to peace with our past and resolve our unfinished business, our karma cleansing, the better we're going to be in the here and now and mindfully engaging with each other.
When we talk about mindfully engaging, you talk about the past. I believe you have a rule in there about the past when it comes to arguments.
Well, part of it is you have to be willing to look at what is being triggered from the past. It really is important, and it's part of another skill we call reveal, where you're really revealing your past, your mistaken beliefs, your limiting outlook on life, and you're willing to reveal more of yourself, more transparency, more genuineness, more truth, more depth. So to really be able to look at, okay, wait a minute, what does this remind me of? How is this like my past? What is this that it's triggering for me? Where have I experienced this before? That's the important information to get to then bring back into with your partner in your relationship.
And I think one of the most meaningful things that happens after years of doing this is the ways that we're able to actually give each other a break and to know and appreciate and even love each other's shortcomings.
Oh, I like it. I like it. So a couple last questions and we'll dive into wrap up. What does it mean to get it up?
Well, we're referring there to upregulating yourself because sometimes I call it like your idol. Sometimes your idol is just too low and you're not engaging quickly enough, or you let too many things pass, or you settle, or you're not going for it in that way. And that was actually for me. I really had to work toward getting it up, so to speak, so that I would engage more quickly. I'd respond more quickly. I've had to be able to up my emotional register to be able to feel what I was feeling more. And actually, it also helps. Part of getting it up is to upregulate, to be able to enjoy the positives that are going on in your relationship. For me to let in, I consciously have to let in the warmth in Bob's eyes and let that just settle right into me and to really, oh, he's looking at me that way. That must mean he loves me. I mean, really taking those in. All of that has to do with getting
there's
it up,
another pragmatic piece to this, is given that I was the more expressive, dominant one when we got together, I had my way with Judith in many ways. And it took a long time for her to get it up so she has her way with me, and probably as many or more ways than I do now.
I think that goes along the lines of what can you tell us about emotional maturity?
Yeah, I think it's the key. Emotional maturity. We all need to grow ourselves up and to really be able, there's several things, to really develop our emotional capacity and our facility to be able to feel things fully, to express them fully, to be able to upregulate and really dive in more fully, to soothe ourselves. It's really important. But another part of the emotional maturity relates to our becoming our own person and separating from our families, differentiating from our family of origin, really individuating, becoming more of a whole person. And I actually think that's one of the purposes of relationship, is to really grow up, become more of ourselves. And that sense of self, being able to deal with the forces of wanting to be really close, and also the forces that we have that wants to be a full individual, separate, that togetherness and merging, being able to deal with those tensions takes some emotional maturity to do that.
It's fascinating when you talk about coming together as a couple and individuating, becoming more of a self.
Right.
Do you have any words of wisdom for people to how to do that dance? Because that's the most difficult dance perhaps of all.
Yeah, I think that it is.
Well, there are two primary drives in human beings, the urge to merge and the urge to separate. So you're hitting right now on the fact that emotional maturity is that capacity to merge and separate. And the fights are actually part of us sorting out our individual self,
Right.
and our capacity to be close in touch.
I do want to just, one of the terms we use, we borrow from David Schnarch, is self-validated intimacy is really part of this journey. And what that means is I don't wait for Bob to be the way I want him to be in order for me to share myself. That I need to be willing to say what I feel, what I believe, state my opinions, regardless of how he responds. Because if there's any if there's any hope of my being understood, I have to be really willing to be there. And so I really want to know that he knows me, and that his love comes from knowing me. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not willing to risk that, and that may risk that he doesn't. It may risk that he doesn't agree, or that he frowns at me, or he could walk away. But what's important is that I am true to myself, and that's been really important.
Otherwise, the person I'm with won't be the one I love.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Makes sense.
It'll be an image.
Do you have any words of wisdom for parents and fighting?
You should take that one on, I think.
Well, for starters, really little children have developing nervous systems, and we suggest that they let the kids know that they're going to have a fight. They go have it, come back, and then the kids want to understand, because children live through a great deal of terror when parents are fighting. So I assume you're talking about parents fighting with children and children present. Yeah, and it's really critical that the children understand that fights complete. And we've been working with families for decades. Actually, I told somebody the other day, and they challenged me. I said, I've worked with kids before they were born. We worked with their parents before they were married, and as they consciously conceived the child, and the child's got a PhD today and grown up. And so there's a great sense. Most of the world thinks you have to stay close all the time. You've just pointed out you don't. It's really that reattachment that matters, that the children feel the family coming together, that they understand there's a process that they don't know yet.
I think it's important for parents to fight in front of the children with these caveats in mind, so children can see that fighting is okay. It does lead to resolution. It does lead to understanding, that they really get that whole process.
It makes me think of with parents with the kids around, instead of makeup sex, there's some sort of a makeup party afterwards.
Well, I think that's lovely. I think that's actually good, that there really is and to really explain what went on, what happened. Mommy this, mommy thought this, daddy that. We understand one another. We feel close. Come on, honey. But yeah, makeup party. I like that a lot. I think that's important. But also, even it's just the whole makeup sex thing. I just want to oftentimes couples use that to get close rather than to resolve things, and then really have the closest come from that. So really what's more important is that it's
a substitute for seeing and being seen.
Yeah.
And touching and being touched, and it oftentimes helps people dig deep holes.
Yeah.
So much better to get things resolved than go for the bedroom.
Absolutely.
Right.
That could be some of the best times.
Absolutely.
Woohoo! So in fact, is the perfect time to ask a wrap-up question we like to ask just before the end is, what personally brings both of you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Oh my gosh. It's what we're even talking about right now, being able to talk about really being able to be with what brings deep fulfillment to a human being, be able to share that, to be able to watch that, to be able to see the differences in people as they become more of themselves and become closer to one another. I mean, it's just, for me, the joy of just what we're talking about, like what really matters, to really love and be loved. I mean, just and to watch that in our own relationship, to watch it with all the wonderful, beautiful people we have the blessing and privilege to work with. I know it just warms my heart. But you talk.
Listening to her talk right now.
Short, sweet, to the point. So where can people go to find out more and to find your book?
They can go to heartofthefight.com, heartofthefight.com. They can start by downloading a free chapter. There's a quiz you can take, but go to heartofthefight.com. You can buy the book from there as well.
And I really enjoyed your book. I recommend it for everyone. I will say, to me, honestly, it's not an easy read. And by that, I mean, you realize it brings up a lot of stuff that you realize, I could have done that differently. I get to do this differently. and so it's invaluable. But it means you get to do the work.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what matters to us. It's not just, oh, hey, nicey nice. It's real. Love is
Mhm.
messy, and you have to dig in there. It takes some skill, takes hard work. It's one of the things I probably have worked the hardest on in my life, and probably the thing I'm the most blessed by, and the most proud of, and the most moved by. And let's not pretend that it's some little happy little cakewalk. It's not. It like any worthy journey. It's really the digging in and the staying the distance and learning and growing continually is what it's all about. That's what makes you better people. That's what builds love. I mean, I didn't know that love built. I thought you either had it or you didn't. I didn't know that I could keep falling in love with my husband over and over again and feel closer and closer. And he's learning and growing and changing. There's more of him to love. I mean, that's the journey, and it takes the hard work to do that.
Woo! So everybody, if you didn't catch the link, go to inspirenationshow.com, put up the book one more time if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll get the links to get you over to Bob and Judith. Before we do a meditation here at the end, any last words of wisdom that you want to share with people?
I just want everyone to know that we all can have magnificent relationships. We're all worthy of creating in our lives love and being loved. And it takes the work to do that. It doesn't have to be one significant other. It can be just having deep contact with anyone in your day. It could be just saying hello to someone with depth and really caring about what's going on with them, that we really can have multiple moments of love and intimacy and care through in every single day of our life.
If you think it's about finding the one, you're missing the love available everywhere, all the time, with everyone you run into.
Beautiful. And you have a whole list of things such as soulmate myth and more in there, which I think is important for people because maybe it is the song, Love the One You're With, but
Well, there is some truth to that. I mean, there really is something to love about everyone. If you're looking for a soulmate, you're missing all the possibilities. And then you think of soulmates, everything's supposed to like work somehow. And it's another one of the things that makes you be lazy in love. It's not the point.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being here today. Before we conclude this, do you have a brief meditation that you'd like to guide us in?
Well, why don't we create one together a little bit? So, yes, I would love that. So, nice deep breath. It always helps me to ground. I'm going to close my eyes and be with this. So, in this moment, be in touch with what it is you deeply yearn for. The yearning to love and be loved. To be seen, to be heard, to be known, to be understood, to connect, to belong, to matter, to be part of something greater than yourself, to know that you've lived this life as fully as you can, to learn, to grow, to express yourself, to become the very best that you can become.
And feel your chest. And feel the warmth that comes when someone has recognized you. And allow yourself to relax into your body and feel the nourishment of life as it is shot through us by the eyes and the voices of others as we take them in and they take us in. Feel your chest aliveness. Feel your heart expanding.
Feel the warmth of that radiance. Feel as if it's a sun on your skin, like you're out on a beautiful hot summer day and the sun is on your skin, it's soaking into your t-shirt, it's warm on your body, and allow that warmth to soak right into you, to become part of you.
And imagine you're dreaming yourself maintaining just a little longer eye contact with people and being a little more curious and getting a little bit greater dose of that life force flowing between you and others, especially those to whom you are close.
And imagine yourself now engaging every day a little bit more adventurously, willing to say a little more of a truth, to share a little more what's on your heart, to let people know you, to reveal yourself, to be seen.
And knowing that for every clutch in our gut, there is a lesson and that we are expanding our capacity to be vehicles for life and love.
And through all this, may you all know that you are loved Whether you feel it or believe it, the truth is you are loved, you are lovable, you are unique, you are beautiful, you are precious, and worthy of all the gifts of the universe, because you are a beloved child of a loving universe. And so it is.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. Got to bring my volume back up now.
That's right.
Woohoo! For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the art of the fight, and be the love, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you both so much. This was beautiful.
Thank you, Michael. What a joy to be with you. It's
Absolute
such a
pleasure.
Huge pleasure to be with you. You're such a gift. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!